Hello there. Let's talk about advice. We're looking at both ends, whether you're the one giving the advice that was not received very well, someone reacted to it, or whether you have been given advice that really hurt, right? Has that happened to you? Sure has to me. And I also have given advice that was not the right thing that the other person wanted to hear. And I really want to talk to that, because when we are seeing our friend or someone that we really care about struggling or suffering or being in misery, right? We want to help them, we want to get them out of this. So the advice that we are giving comes from a well-meaning place, right? I always remind myself when I receive advice that hurt, that I didn't want to hear, to remind myself if this was from a nurturing friend, that it came from a well-meaning place, right? Because it's so difficult. And what I also had to learn is that the other person doesn't actually know what I need when I'm struggling. Have you ever noticed that people just don't guess it right? And we want to take the guesswork out of this. So if I'm struggling and something has gone really wrong for me, what helps is when I actually tell the other person before I share what I need them to do. Right? So, because if my computer breaks down and I'm in my frantic mode because I'm not good with tech and I'm like, I actually want you to help me. I want you to take that computer off me and fix it for me, right? But for other situations, that is not the case, right? If I'm struggling, I much rather have you to just listen and hold space, right? And not give me any advice. I just want some listening ears and perhaps being validated. It's like, oh, I get that would have been so difficult, and that's all that I needed, right? So sometimes when you're coming home from a busy day at work and it's like the boss has been horrible and your co-workers, it's like it was a really ugly day and you came home and you walk in the door and your partner will pick up on that, right? And it can really create some friction and arguments, because you might come in and you want to tell that, and then your partner comes up with some advice that you really didn't want to hear. So sometimes it like I said, it helps when you say it's like, hey, I just need to offload this. I just, like some of my clients call this verbal diarrhea. I just need to get that out. Can you just stay with me, let me dump that, and then we'll leave that there, and then we can move on, and we cook something together, we have a good evening, or whatever it is there. If we can actually tell that the other person before that happens, we minimize the amount of friction, the amount of arguments we have, and the amount of times we feel misunderstood. Because that's the thing, when you have complex PTSD from our childhood trauma, we often have been misunderstood. This is a deep wound within us. It hurts. It hurts when people don't understand what we need, right? So we can preempt that. We can tell them what we need, so we're less likely to feel misunderstood, right? So when it comes to advice giving, like I said, I have given advice that was not perceived so well. I realized that when we, instead of saying that, so often you see that people actually ask questions, especially on social media. You may have been in some of my Facebook groups, or perhaps you're a Thrive or Remember, my online community there. Or you may have seen it on Instagram, YouTube, you name it. You have seen people ask for support, and then some people actually given advice and then they were critiqued for their advice. Maybe that happened to you too. It sure happened to me that I've given some advice and then someone said, this is rubbish, this does not work for people who have complex PTSD, you just really don't get it. Have you ever had a comment like that? It really hurts, doesn't it? Because, like I said, it comes from a well-meaning place. So what I always try to do is, first, when someone asks a question, it's like letting them know that I've been through the same thing and I felt the way they felt. If that's true for you, right? We don't want to lie about that. But it's like, well, you can say, I've been through something similar and I felt like this too. When I was going through that, I found helpful when I did X, Y, Z, or this was my go-to approach to help me through those kind of crises or things. So if you tell them, this is what I tried and this is what I found helpful, then people can't critique you, right? You found it helpful. And as I always say, there's so many different approaches out there. There's no approach that helps everybody, but every approach helps somebody. And if you can structure it a little bit more like this, our advice that this is what I did and I find it helpful, then it's often perceived better by the other person. Now that's just some tips that I found, but I know this can be very challenging area there. So, and it depends on where you're at on your healing journey, okay? Especially in terms of friendships, right? Because sometimes you may have had a really difficult situation going on, whether this is when I was still studying at uni, you know, I have an exam coming up and work called me in for extra hours, or maybe you have children, a lot of stuff is going on and you're meeting up with your friend and you really need her support and you get together and then your friend has a real reaction and you have a fight. And sometimes what happens is that actually your friend was also going through a lot of stuff and they didn't know that you were going through, they would have needed you, all right? But what is beautiful, and that when they're nurturing people, that there are opportunities for us to grow. Okay, when we then the next day realize, oh, we had a reaction. Can we talk this through? Can we repair this? Can we get together and say, oh, I get it, and realize now you actually had a really horrible time as well, just like me. You would have needed me, and talking this through, this can actually strengthen your relationship with that person, that friendship. Right. This is so. Like I said, there's depends on where you're at on your healing journey. There, how open we can stay in friendships, how vulnerable we can make ourselves in those kind of friendships, and repair those kind of situations there. Right. So I know this is a long journey, and this is a difficult one. Right. You go into any bookstore, and there is so many books on communication, conflict, advice giving, leadership, all these communication types of topics. It's huge. It doesn't matter whether you have complex PTSD or not. This is a difficult thing, right? There's this for every human being, that I just meant to say, okay? So, but if you do want some private support around that, then please reach out. You know where to find me. But in the meantime, as always, I am wishing you all the best and lots of love and rainbows to brighten up the tough times just a little. See ya, bye.